In this lesson, we're going to be rendering our fish animation to import and loop. Okay, so we're right here where we left off in our last lesson, and if I just scrub forward here, you can kind of see the animation that we created. What I want to do is use simply this area that my keyframes are in as my work area. So I can really easily trim down this composition to only last that amount of time by putting my current time indicator here on that last keyframe and hitting the N key. And that's going to give me that last frame right there, and then I can right click that work area and choose trim comp to work area, and now the comp only lasts the duration of that work area. So I want to send this to my render queue, so I'm going to come up here, go to composition, add to render queue, and you do want to use a lossless AVI for this, but there's one other thing we want to change. I don't want to have any kind of a background. I want to be able to have this fish on a transparent background, just like you would if you were using the comp. So I'm going to come up here to where you see channels and choose RGB plus alpha. So that's going to give me a transparent background. Now I'll go ahead and say okay to that. And then let's go over to our output too. Green fish swim is perfect for the name of this, and we're rendering it to our reference files folder, which is also great. So go ahead and say okay, save, and then hit render. Okay, so once that's rendered out, come back over here to your project panel, and you may want to choose your main Coral infographic. Let's re-import that piece that we just rendered out. So I'm going to go ahead and right click. We'll choose import file and go to that AVI. Go ahead and say open, and then we'll right click that and go to interpret footage main. And what we're doing right now is basically the action that's going to allow us to loop this. So right now it says that it's only looping one time. So that basically means it's only lasting the duration that we gave it whenever we first rendered it out. So I'm just going to put an arbitrary number in here that's much bigger than what we have. So let's just say 25. So we're going to loop it 25 times. Now we'll go ahead and say okay. And I'll just pull this onto my timeline. And if I move this up a little bit, you can see that that original layer with that shorter duration only lasts for those first 12 frames, but the one that we just told to loop lasts much longer. So I'm just going to delete the green fish swim comp off of the timeline, so we'll just delete that. It's still going to live in our comps folder if we ever need to make a change, but now we have this AVI that's going to be really useful for creating other animations, and all we'll have to animate is the position of the fish. He's already going to have the movement of his tail and body, which is going to make it look a lot more realistic than if you're trying to do all of that at once, and it's a little bit more efficient doing it this way because you just don't have so much to worry about and to change. So in this lesson, we learned how to render out our fish so that we could bring him back in and get him to loop across a long amount of time. In our next lesson, we're going to learn how to create a school of fish using this one fish as a layer in a particle system. So that's really fun. Stick around. We're going to learn how to do that in our next lesson.